Welcome to Digital Asset News. My name is Rob, and tonight we're going to talk about, first of all, special nighttime edition screening. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. First of all, I took a look at Chat GPT and I asked it, what do we need for crypto mass adoption? And quite honestly, it wasn't a surprise what they said. Also, we'll take a look at Gary and Larry, tell us what's needed for mass adoption. Lastly, security tokens with Swiss company Arcton, which is about an 8 minutes interview. And lastly, we'll just do a quick Q&A. So first things first. Chat GPT. What is it? Why is it important? Why is everybody talking about it? Why does everybody use it? It's actually quite an interesting process. And Chat GPT, or Generative Pre-trained Transformers AI, it's a chat bot launched by OpenAI in November 2022. Hasn't been around too long. It's built on top of OpenAI's GPT 3.5 family of large language models and is fine-tuned with both supervised and reinforcement learning techniques, which is quite interesting. You can ask it any question that you want to. There's a link in the description. You can find it. And it's actually quite interesting how it all just generates the responses. But basically what it does is just takes a look at pre-responses or questions that have been asked before, disseminates the information, tries to give you a more accurate answer from a vast amount of knowledge of what it pulls. And this is what I asked it. I said, when will crypto go mainstream? Very basic question. I think it's something that we'd all like to know, especially with this incredible bear market. And this is what it said. It says, look, it's difficult to predict exactly when cryptos will go mainstream, as it depends on a variety of factors such as regulatory developments, adoption and use of crypto by individual businesses, and overall public perception of cryptos. And it says this: one major factor that could contribute to the mainstream adoption of cryptos is the development of regulatory framework that provide clarity and guidance for their use. Look, I've been talking about that forever on this channel. And it's not me telling you that. It's the AI, it's the bot. It's the information that it has, again, as much information as it can possibly get, to tell us exactly what it is to answer that question. So again, regulatory framework. As regulatory bodies around the world continue to explore ways to regulate crypto and related tech, it is possible that they will become more widely accepted and used. And it just goes to show you that, sometimes the things that are the most simple are the things that are right in front of our face and we can just use. So now I know people are going to say, look, Rob, you don't understand. Regulation, we can't regulate crypto. Of course not, right? We can't go in there and say, hey, we're going to shut down Bitcoin. Let me talk to the CEO. It doesn't work like that. However, we can take a look at the centralized exchanges and we can regulate those in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not commingling of funds, which is what happened with FTX. I don't know, just something simple like that, just to get in there and say, hey, the funds that were being used, was this something that you bought your house with, I don't know, Rob from Digital Asset News' money, or maybe the people that watch Digital Asset News, or maybe just generalized people in general who believe in your platform, FTX, and you commingle that money and you used it to whatever you did with it, and now all of a sudden we're missing $8 billion. Maybe just a little regulation on that front could be pretty good. And also on the back end of that, those are centralized exchanges. I think just the dynamics of just stating what is a currency in cryptocurrencies, because they're not all currencies, let's be honest. What is a commodity? I think Bitcoin is a commodity. I think even Gary Gensler, friend of the show, who watches all the time, will agree that it's a commodity. And what's a security? And then how do you separate those two? Because in all honesty, with Ethereum, there's utility there with Ethereum. How can you call it a security, an investment contract, when you're using it for gas fees and things like that? Doesn't make much sense. Doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, give us regulatory clarity, and that'll allow other people, other institutions to come in. That's all I'm saying. And I think ChatGPT tends to agree with me. On top of that, we can see this is what Gary wants. And I think this is no surprise to anybody. This is a tweet pre-Christmas, well, a couple days before Christmas Eve. And he states, until crypto platforms comply with time-tested securities laws, risks to investors will persist. It remains a priority of the SEC to use all our available tools to bring the industry into compliance. And this is just pretty standard stuff. I don't see where he's going to give up here. I don't see why we keep banging our head against the wall, and just go from there. Some pretty good comments, some pretty good nuggets here in the comment section. Like Ben's says, hey, you literally met with Sam Bankman-Fried and were able to sniff out the biggest fraud of our generation. Please tell me what these tools can do for us. They can't do anything, Ben. Library says, we'll give you $20 million you're demanding of us if you reply with a clear explanation of how to launch a public blockchain in the US. This is a serious offer. And this is from Tony from Thinking Crypto. This is pretty funny. They're like, hey, we don't want to deal with FTX Celsius and Do Kwon from Luna, but gosh darn it, Kim Kardashian and XRP and Library, we're going to get you for all the things you do. Again, quite ridiculous, but that is just what it is. So that is what Gary wants. Now we take a look at what Larry wants. We talked about this a couple of days ago. This is Larry Fink. He is the CEO of BlackRock, a small asset manager of $10 trillion. This is about 22 seconds. Just take a listen. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities.
Great. What the heck is that? So to answer that question, tokenization of securities, and if he's going to do a public or a private blockchain, because he's putting out there that, hey, we like to have that. I was reached out by this team from Arcton. Arcton, they're a small company in Switzerland, and they're looking to for small businesses and raising of funds for said small businesses, and they believe in security tokens. They've already done this with the Swiss government and the EU and things like that. The team itself, I actually interviewed these guys. We're going to do that in a second. But the first couple of minutes was a little bit off as far as the audio, so I'll just introduce these gentlemen. This is Maris Durings. He is a capital market lawyer, turned startup founder, helping companies raise funds. And he deals in securities. So it's good to have a lawyer on the team. Also, this is Francesco Viano. He is the blockchain expert, background in finance and data analysis, certificate of advanced studies in blockchain, able to program in Solidity, and last year, 2021, launched STOverse, blockchain crowdfunding source. And these two gentlemen have started up with Arcton. And they reached out to me and said, Rob, we deal a lot in security tokens here in Switzerland. Just want to see if you'd like us to talk about it. I said, absolutely, because I don't really understand it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these guys in. This is pre-recorded, so just take a listen to this. It's about roughly 8 minutes or so, and they'll explain to you exactly what they're talking about as far as security tokens. Because to me, it just didn't make a whole ton of sense. So recording now. Security tokens, tokenization of securities. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so what is a security token? A security token from a technical point of view is exactly the same as any other token. So you can take like an ERC20 token, and this is actually can be a security token. So what is the difference between other tokens and security token? It's just like the legal backing of it. Because a security token is backed by a security, like a stock or a bond.
Right.
And this means for you as an investor, you have clearly defined rights toward the issuer. You can also bring him before court if he does not abide by the rules. And this has some big advantages, which were implicitly mentioned by Larry Fink, which can take like starting what's the big advantage. So I have brought here like a share of Coca-Cola company. This was gifted to me by my father, like 15 years ago. And as you can see, it's a paper, and it represents a membership right in the Coca-Cola company. Unfortunately, I don't know whether I'm still a shareholder of this company, whether this share is still valid. If I want to send it to you, sell it to you, I would need to send it via post. And if you send me the money back, it's a big risk, because if I send the paper first, I don't know whether I'll get the money in the future. So these are some of the issues. Other issues are like, as I said, I don't know whether I'm the owner. The paper might get burned, might get destroyed, might get lost. So in reality, a lot of mistakes happen with that. And this is basically how our current security system works. So it's very slow, inefficient, and also super expensive. And here, I would say like tokenization can bring a lot of value, because you can sell it 24/7 to anyone in the world. It's transparent. I always know whether I own it or not. So these are some of the advantages which you have, which can bring tokenization. And this was also what Larry Fink mentioned. Although I assume that he would talk about like permission blockchains, and in my opinion, they don't bring that much value, because you don't have this transparency. You don't have like the clear ownership, which is always established. I would say ultimately you need some trust, and then you have the whole financial infrastructure, which is so expensive. So you take a lot of the advantages away.
Yeah, I can see that. And we talked about this before. I think, of course, if he's going to talk about it, he says, well, we want to do a private one. So now if we're going to talk about trust, so it's going to be him and Jamie Dimon and a couple different big players in the banks and the finance industry. Like, do they really trust each other enough just to do it permissionless or permissioned in a closed down environment? I don't know if that is the actual benefit of blockchain. I don't think it is, but apparently that's what they're going to try. They might try to do. Hopefully it'll be a fool's errand as time goes on. They'll say, maybe this isn't good. Maybe we'll try to put this on a layer 1 solution and then go from there. Okay, so Marins, thanks so much for breaking it down. What is the security tokens? What are the advantages and all that stuff? Now let's talk about what are the disadvantages. So if we're going to talk about a token or a tokenization of assets or just a security token in general, what's the disadvantages? And Francesco, this would be a question for you, since you wrote a paper on this not too long ago.
Yeah, sure. So what we see, of course, the disadvantage of having a security token is that there is regulation behind it, and you have to comply with the law. So this regulation came after the ICO craze that we all know that many of the projects were scams, where a lot of investors lost their money. And this regulation came into force actually just after that in Switzerland. We have one of the first countries to have that very clear and ruled out. And this comes and this is one of the disadvantages in the sense that we have to comply with all these law, which actually ensures and protect investors. But of course, it makes it a bit more complicated than just issue an utility token. You have to comply with all the security laws. You also have to comply with security laws in different countries. If you want to issue the security into other countries, you have to comply with those laws as well. So another disadvantage is that utility token, though the utility issuer of utility token don't bear that much responsibility, while on the technological side, while if you're doing it with a security token, actually there is a bit more of liability and responsibility on the issuer side. So I would say that to summarize, so comply with the regulation. This is like the disadvantage, and it is expensive as well. Of course, it's more expensive to issue a security token than just a utility token. And on the technological side, it's the issuers bears a bit more liability.
Gotcha. And you know what? To me, and before we go on, I'll say it makes sense to this one. Yes, it's going to suck because we're going to have to bend the knee a little bit just to say, okay, we're all going to be securities. We're all going to have to go over there. Every product can say, now we have to register with the SEC. I see it as a positive in one way, and that is that we have over 5,000 different crypto projects, and most of them are worthless. So if they have to all say, well, we're going to be a security token, we all have to go this way. Now it's expensive to do so, right? We have to go before the SEC. We have to hire the lawyers. We have to get everything in place. For them to do that, it's going to be very difficult. So what will happen? Well, just like we have in different parts of the business world, they start to consolidate. They can't make it. Bigger projects eat up the smaller projects, and those projects become bigger because there's a shortage of really good blockchain developers, apparently. So I can see it in one way. It's an advantage. The disadvantage, like we said, Francesco, I totally understand, which makes me to our last question. Does it make sense for some current crypto projects to go this route? And I don't want to get into the discussion, because Marins will probably run rings around me about what would be considered an investment contract, a utility, and a security, and what could be not. But just we'll start with Francesco again. We'll end up with Marins. But would it make sense for some current projects to go this route and say, fine, we're a security, let's do this?
Yeah, exactly. I would argue that it could make totally sense if you're a crypto project and you want to go through a traditional fundraising process. Then why not doing a security token, tokenize your shares and issue it to your community, your investors, and go directly that way? That could be one potential application. Another reason why it will make sense is like avoiding legal uncertainty.
Sure.
You could go directly for a security without avoiding all these legal troubles that could arise potentially, whether it's a STO or an ICO or an ICO.
Right.
For instance, we have seen an example here in Switzerland where actually there is a project who has actually converted his utility token into security tokens. It's called Modum. It's a startup in Zurich, more oriented in the pharma side, but they did exactly this. They converted their utility token into securities.
Interesting. All right. So then, Marins, what do we got here? Would it make sense? Same thing for you, for current projects to go this route, or you think, nah, just leave them the same way they are?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense for crypto projects to issue security tokens, because at the moment, I mean, the market is just a very niche. If you think about it, all the crypto, the total market cap for crypto projects is maybe $1 trillion. And so you're very restricted to that market. But if you issue security token, you can also access all kind of investors who currently invest into securities. And this market is $400 trillion. So there's just much bigger market if you issue security tokens than the current status quo.
Interesting. That'll be it. All right. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thanks again for stopping by. I had these questions about security tokens, and of course, some of those questions were answered. We'll have you back at some point, but thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Great. And that's it. So again, I want to say thank you to Marins and Francesco for coming on the show and explaining to us what security tokens are. Didn't make a lot of sense to me in the very beginning, but kind of understanding exactly where it is. And that will conclude it for tonight's late night live stream. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, all that good stuff. Now, if you want to stick around, I'll answer all your burning questions to the best of my abilities as we go over a little Q&A. If you can't stick around, don't stick around. See you later. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the cues. So